All right, welcome back, everybody. To we got a special today, a special one shot. We're going to be talking about middle school books. It's Middle School March, as my friend Amber has kindly pointed out. And as you saw, it's March's reading month for schools, apparently. So, but before we get started, how are you ladies doing today?
Good.
Yeah.
I am super sleepy because I am an old-fashioned person that uses an analog alarm clock. And my daughter was out late last night and I didn't hear her come home. And that's fine. She's 24. But just for safety reasons, I grabbed my cell phone to see if she was staying somewhere else or whatever. And I was like, why hasn't my alarm gone off? Well, because I didn't go forward. So I'm rushing around trying to search on time. I made it. But, there's something to be said for digital clocks.
Yes.
So the question is, did we save daylight? Is it saved? Is it good? Is it all safe and sound daylight?
Needs to just stay the other way. We just need to go back to always normal time. Please
leave it one way or the other. Somebody pick, and I'm good with whatever you pick. But leave it alone.
I'm a fan of the other time, and that's a hill I'll probably die on, just because I've read studies on our rhythms and just whatever. So yes, can we all be like Arizona in this instance, please?
Right. And it was dark when I had to get up this morning.
I couldn't remember. I know Arizona. Yeah. I knew Arizona did it, but I wasn't sure if there was anybody else. I knew Arizona was one of them, but I could have sworn there was a place in Florida.
There might be another one. I don't
know. I'm telling you, there's a place in Florida, but who knows? We got up because Lorena gets up to go to work on Sundays because she works at the church, and I was like, man, it's awfully. I forgot all about it. I was like, man, it's awfully dark this morning for us to be getting up. So it was dark.
Yes.
Oh well, we are. Like I said, we're going to talk about middle school stuff. We had a big discussion on what we decided was middle school. It's hard to listen.
Not that hard,
when we were in school. Yes, it is hard because when we were in school, middle school was intermediate, right? Is that correct? Like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, something of that nature.
To show you how old I am, there was no middle school.
No, actually,
we didn't have.
Josh and I went to junior high.
Yeah,
we didn't go to middle school.
No middle school.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, we didn't have middle school. It was elementary. It was elementary, intermediate.
Not all schools were intermediate though. Not all schools out in Choctaw had intermediate though. Some were just straight elementary. Because you went to Nakoma Park, I went to Choctaw. We went to 2 different junior highs that fed into one high school. So
I went to Nakoma Park.
But here's the deal: you can't look at grades. Middle grade fiction does not correspond with middle school.
No.
I guess maybe I should have said that last month.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. Why they started age 8, I don't know. But,
it's a pretty wide range, I think.
It really is.
It really covers an 8-year-old is really different from a 13-year-old.
Right. So. And
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
caveat always is parents of younger children should be pre-reading or at least talking to a good friend. And, you don't just hand this is good for an 8-year-old. It may not be good for your 8-year-old. So
Right.
just because I love
Yeah.
a book, my friends, does not mean you're going to think it's good for your kid. So just know that.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, and because like I could sit here, like the ones I picked, I'm like, well, I would let my girls read a few of them. I'm not sure I'd let them read Holes just yet, but Holes is like 10 and up. But yeah, I don't know if I'd let them read Holes, but like Where the Red Fern Grows is fine. Hatchet, those are fine, but and then you get you're doing your research, or I'm doing research and everything, and it's showing Harry Potter and A Wrinkle in Time. So I feel like those are. I think you should have middle school and then definitely a young adult. I think there should be a difference between the two.
Well,
So-
and like the first Harry Potter might be fine,
First 3.
but the later ones,
Mhm.
depending on the age of the kids. So,
And I actually read that somewhere about the Harry Potter thing. Someone said like the first 3 are definitely middle school, but then Goblet of Fire and on, maybe not.
yeah, they can get dark. So, and it depends on the kid. I mean, even, you said depends on the 8-year-old. It even depends on the 13-year-old.
Yes.
Like you can have a 13-year-old, because I had picked a book that I thought maybe would work for a class I was teaching. And then somebody said, I would reconsider that because of this one child. And I was really glad they told me that, because I realized that book probably would have sent her over the edge.
Okay, that's good.
She's just a really sensitive little soul. And I don't say that in any, like, I love this child. She's wonderful. But that book would have been a tough one for her. So I was really glad we didn't do it.
It's good that you have that choice. Where the Red Fern Grows, I think I read that in elementary school. I think that was like on my 4th grade reading list or something. But that falls your way in 4th grade.
And I read that with my 6th to 8th graders. And I told them, I said, it's below your reading level, but the concepts and like the things we can talk about it at your level. So
that's what that's my question. That's why I'm glad we're doing this show today, because certain themes, what the reading level may be 4th, 5th grade, but sometimes the themes and sometimes the characters themselves can be a little bit more mature and more older for other classes to discuss. So I always find it well, I don't want to say odd. I always find it weird sometimes what we consider a middle school book. So that's why I was glad that like I said, I'm glad that we're doing this week, because there's probably other people that if I'm don't understand it sometimes, I'm sure there's other people. Not that I'm the smartest man in the room or anything, but you understand where I'm going with that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And with my kids, because I homeschooled the younger 3, so Alyssa being the middle child in that scenario, my read alouds were geared toward my middle child.
Yeah.
Because then Colton could still enjoy it, and Annie could pick up a little bit. And even if you're, reading aloud and it's supposed to be for a middle grade or whatever, and your 8-year-old's not quite getting it, you can hand that book to that child again in a few years.
Right.
Oh, I know this story. This is great. I remember liking it. And then read through it quicker or better or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of times the older kids will appreciate a middle grade novel for different reasons. Like they'll pick up on some of the humor that maybe, like we're going to talk about Richard Peck's books. And those books are hysterical. I mean, they are funny. And I wonder if the younger range of the middle, in fact, I'm actually pretty confident the younger range of the middle school kids don't get the humor. So, but as you get older, you're like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And before you popped in backstage, Amber and I were talking about that, and let me get your opinion on this. I like to read the reviews, so I wasn't going to read all my books, but I finally I ended up reading them all, and so I'm going on to Goodreads and giving my my ratings, and I'm sitting there reading some of the negatives, and so you teach middle school right now. Do they have the same feelings as some of these newer? Like I'm reading, they hate the Hatchet, they hate Where the Red Fern Grows. They hate these books because of the themes, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute, obviously. But how do your middle school, if you have read like Where the Red Fern Grows or The Hatchet and things like that, how do your middle schoolers feel about these older 70s, 60s, 50s middle school books?
Well, so we did read Where the Red Fern Grows, and they did love it, except that we also did Old Yeller the same year. And
you can't do those two in a row.
What are you doing? That poor girl. If she was doing that.
And at the end of that year, then the kids, we were just sort of talking about the year, and I was getting there. I was like, okay, let's rank the books. I want you to tell me your favorite, and let's talk about them. You know, we're kind of doing this wrap up thing. And they were like, so next year, can we not read a book where a dog dies? I was like, yes, we cannot read a book where a dog dies. I'm so sorry. But so they did like it. Now, interestingly, I've not read Hatchet with them, but that was highly requested by most of the boys. They wanted to read Hatchet, and that's the book I knocked off the list because the one girl, somebody was like, I think she's going to struggle. And when I read the book, you know, closely, sort of with her in mind, I was like, yeah, I can't read this with her.
So just for clarity for people that are out there and don't know us, Dana's at a homeschool co-op though.
Yes.
So it's a little different.
Yeah, it's not like public school where, so
she has a little more choice over what she gets to read.
Exactly. And I have the luxury of being able to talk to the parents and, and check with them book list ahead of time, and all those kinds of things. But also I'm not bound by a public school book list. So I can choose older things or newer things. We can do a variety of things. But so anyway, to answer your question, they do like these books. For the most part, I mean, I had one of the books I'm going to talk about tonight is a newer book, which I just adore. And about half the class also loved it. And the other half hated it, absolutely hated it, and had good reasons for hating it too. I mean, it wasn't just like, I don't like this book. I'm like, okay, why? And they had reasons. They thought it through. And I was like, well, okay, I'm not going to argue. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But so, yeah.
Like, I think Holes is probably the newest book in my list. But, because again, it's probably nostalgia hitting me with all the books that I like from the old, the older books that I like. But and then again, it's obviously where I can see as you being, and I'm probably going to get more into the newer books as they come now, because of teaching the girls. So as they get older, I'll start reading some of the newer ones. But it's funny, and I say this with the books that they read. They love the show. Lorraine and I will sit here and watch Mama's Family and Murder, She Wrote and Golden Girls and Little House on the Prairie, and they're enthralled with them. It's like they don't want to watch some of the new stuff. They're ready to watch Mama's Family and the stuff that we watch. So
and there's no cussing, so that's okay.
Well, I just want it to be the same because should I don't want it to be the same way with books, though. Does that make sense? Like, I want to be able to go check out these new books that are coming out from middle school. So I'm hoping that in turn they'll teach me in that aspect.
It's interesting that you brought that up. My books are all in the past 30 years. I think the oldest one I have is my Richard Peck, and that was in the 90s, the early 90s. I fell in love with middle grade fiction when I homeschooled my kids. Yes. But only 2 of these books on my list were ones I read aloud. The other 3 I've just discovered on my own. So that excites me that yours are older and mine are newer. And I think Dana has a good mix. So we're going to kind of hit all over the past 50, 60 years. So. Yeah. Also, I feel really old saying these books are from the past 30 years, and the oldest one is when I graduated high school. It's kind of blowing my mind.
Yeah, because 30 years ago was, like 1970 or something.
But see, 30 years ago is when we were born. Okay, let's just get that straight. 30 years ago is when we were born. No, but I like that too. I like that there's a mixture of what we're getting ready to discuss today.
Yeah. Dash, I was going to say too, as you're teaching your girls, I think you'll find that middle grade fiction is awesome for teaching history.
Yes.
And so that was sort of my gateway to middle grade fiction, was again homeschooling my kids and hating history books. But we all love to read and read aloud. And so I intentionally started looking for books that we could learn about World War II by reading a great
Right.
fiction book. And so I've just kind of kept that up. Like if there's all of these are not like that, but I have a ton of middle grade fiction books that just teach great history and love them.
Man, I could do a whole TED talk on that for sure. I remember the year I started homeschooling, my neighbor was homeschooling, and she was like, the year she started homeschooling, her daughter was in first grade. It's also the year that her mom died. Her mom died in a very violent car wreck on her way to visit my friend. And so she'd already pulled her daughter out of public school. And she said, all we could do that year was read. That's all we did. I had no energy for anything else, reading, and then like some few first grade math facts or whatever. And that girl did just fine.
Yes.
Was able to put her in a second grade curriculum the next year. And so she's like, because I was stressing because Colton was going into second grade. And she goes, if you can't figure it out this first year, just read. Now, you can't do that when you're pulling your kid out in seventh grade. I'm not saying that. But the little years, like just reading, you could just, Yeah.
And I cannot help myself when I'm reading with the class. We have to do the historical context. We just have to. I can't not do it. And to the point where a couple of times they said, so is this history class? And I'm like, no, but you're going to learn some history while we're here. So buckle up.
Really, I was in high school. I was on the honors track, which I guess would be AP track now.
AP.
And my English and history were the same teacher in junior high because they taught those subjects together. And to me, it just makes sense to teach literature and history together. And so that's just how I do it. Well, you saw me last month on our reading roundup. I'm talking about Alice Roosevelt, and I found that historical fiction. And it just kind of in my mind, just to this day,
it goes together.
Like that. So
so I'm kind of jealous, Dash. That was my favorite thing about homeschooling was teaching literature and history with my kids. It was the best. It was so fun.
They love to read, because Lorraine and I both read, and obviously they love to read as well too. So, and then they're writing their own books. They're sitting at the table writing their own books now.
Because they see
and I find I find that very. They're right. No, they wrote it on their papers first. They got their little notebooks, and it all started from a little play that they drew they drew the characters out first. And so Lorraine and I were sitting there one night and we're like, just write it out. So they went in there and wrote it out, and then they started typing. So I love it. So I think you're right. I think reading is an awesome way to teach, even if you're, because I let them read some of the who was, who is. They read a lot of those too. So
that's awesome.
Oh yeah, I could do a whole show on homeschooling. I miss it in a way.
Yeah, in a way. Remember those moments.
So we're gonna get into it. So let's start with Miss Amber. We'll start with you, since yours are kind of earlier, we'll say that, where Miss Dana has a mixture and I have mostly old, so we'll kind of go in that order there.
Okay, so the first one I have for you is called The Book Wanderers by Anna James, and I think there's 5 in this series. I don't even know why I picked it up. I don't remember where I saw it. There's 5 or 6. But the little girl's 11, and her name is Tilly Pages, and her grandparents have a bookstore, and her mom has disappeared. She doesn't know where her mom is. And so she's living with her grandparents. And then one day she sees a little girl that looks just like Anne of Green Gables. And so that's a little weird. And then the next day she sees a little girl that looks like Alice in Wonderland. We'll come to find out she's a book wanderer. So she can go into literature. She can go into these books. But these characters, Anne and Alice, came out because they need her help, because something is going on and they need her help. And it is just absolutely delightful. And then, she's got to find out what happened to her mom. And so it's this whole big series about her going into all these great classic children's books that we all love so much. I also love at the end. I don't know if it's the end of book 1, but maybe it's like the end of the series. The author said, because of copyright, I have to use passages from books that are older. And she said, but there are plenty of new modern day classics that are available at your bookstore today. And she gives a list. So she's like, I have to use these because of copyright infringement. I have one disclaimer. Tilly is sassy. She's like most 11-year-olds are, and she gets frustrated because adults don't always listen to her. I'm pretty disappointed in the way the author handles that, because the grown-ups don't correct her. I think there's just one time when her grandmother says something to her about her attitude. Other than that, they just let her get away with it, and I think I think the author kind of has a responsibility maybe to just balance the scales a little bit, because you can be upset when an adult's not listening to you, but it's kind of a constant thing where Tilly's just hormonal. So read this.
It's almost
know that.
it's almost like the land of stories, sort of, and kind of in a way.
Yes. There's like a train.
I like that. I do like that
between books. It's just, the whole world is just fascinating, and I love it so much. My next one is by Neil Gaiman, and it's a Newbery Medal winner, 2019, 2009, 05, 08, somewhere around there. It's called The Graveyard Book. Have y'all read this?
No.
I have read that.
This is about a little boy named Nobody Owens whose family was killed, and he ends up growing up in a cemetery and is raised by the ghosts. Oh my gosh.
Oh
my gosh. So, but come to find out, he can't.
Neil Gaiman's kind of in trouble right now, though.
Well, and I'll talk about that in a minute. They call him Bod. Bod can't leave because the man who killed his family is trying to kill him. So, just adventure from there. This is the only book as of back in 08. I didn't look it up. That won both the Newbery in the United States and UK's counterpart, the Carnegie Medal. It's really, really good. I would also like to say that for the most part, if an artist misbehaves, I still enjoy their art. I do have, there are some instances where I won't anymore, but I've kind of stayed out of the whole Neil Gaiman thing. And so I say, if it doesn't bother you, enjoy this, because this is phenomenal.
Cool. Enjoy the book. Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Yep, I agree. It is a fantastic book. I did. Yeah, I read that it's a couple of months ago that I read it. I loved it.
It's so good.
And it took me a minute. I didn't know that it was the ghost at first,
I didn't give anything away. That's on the back. Yeah, it's not a spoiler alert. It's raised by the ghosts.
Yeah.
Okay, my next one is a series called The Pinderwicks.
Oh,
I love The Pinderwicks. It's very girly, but it's so cute. A summer tale of 4 sisters, 2 rabbits, and a very interesting boy. So these 4 girls, middle school age, 8 years old and up or whatever. And I think their mom has passed away, and the dad takes them to a summer house. And it reminds me of like maybe The Secret Garden or Anne of Green Gables, where it's a little bit quieter of a novel. You're not going to find too much of exciting adventure, but it's just the sweetest series, and just read all of them, and the girl in your life will have a great time. The boy might like it too, but it's definitely about the girls. Well, there is a boy. They do meet a boy. They do. But there's
a boy in there. There's a boy in there.
It's so sweet.
And it's wonderful for a car trip because the audio is phenomenal. So good. We listened to it on a long trip. I have memories of listening. So yeah.
I think there's 5. I have 5 of them. So unless they've written more,
that's all of them as far as I know. Is 5.
Because they grow up and So because the oldest is 12, so I think she's graduating high school and going to college in the last one or something. Okay, this next one, Dash, take note, because I think you should read it to your girls. The Boys Start the War. But have you read this, Dana?
No.
By Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. Okay, listen. So it's just these boys live in like Virginia or West Virginia or whatever. There's 4 brothers, and their best friends, boys, have moved away. And finally, someone has bought the house next door, and it's nothing but
It's a
sisters.
girl.
It's nothing but girls.
Boo.
Boys are
Boo.
livid. And so they start a war because they're going to make these girls so miserable that their family is going to go back to wherever it is they came from. But the girls, don't underestimate girls. These little girls give it back to them. And I had to stop reading. I was snort laughing so hard. And I think it's so fun. It's thin. I think this is a series. I have not read any of the others, but man, I love this one. It's so good. So good.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready? Are you ready?
We're ready for the last one.
A Long Way from Chicago is on my top 10 list of probably favorite books of all time by Richard Peck. It takes place in the Depression in Illinois, and Joey and his sister Mary Alice go and spend every summer with their grandma. And so this takes place like 7 or 8 years. And grandma is a little crazy. Grandma is beyond crazy. And it's another one that's just going to make you laugh because there's these 2 Chicago kids that are now in a small town in the Depression, and she's crazy and they don't know what to do with her. And so just 8 years of growth and loving grandma, and it to me, it's one of the greatest books I've ever read, ever. It's like a desert island little book that I would take with me. Please read it if you haven't. It's so
Yes. And as much as you laugh, all I have to do is think about the last page and I get kind of teary.
I
just thinking. I don't even have to read it. I just have to think about it. In fact, we read the last chapter out loud in our class. We read that book, and I said to them, I said, "Are you guys used to seeing your mothers cry?" And they were like, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Okay, so it's going to kind of be like that." So because I can't do this chapter without crying.
It's so good.
It's so good. Yes.
I don't need no crying. I don't need no crying.
Oh,
but
Until we get to Where the Red Fern Grows and Old Yeller.
but it's a different kind of crying
like
from that.
heartwarming.
Oh, so good.
I love it so much. Okay.
Is that it?
That's
Wow,
5.
that's all
I've
5?
got a whole other stack I can talk about.
All right.
Don't
We'll
do
jump
it.
into Peck's next book. So this is the sequel. So this is A Year Down Yonder. And so Joey is off doing his thing. Her, Mary Alice's parents they're really struggling in the Depression, and they've lost their home, and they've had to move into this tiny little apartment, and there's no room for her. So she goes to spend an entire year with Grandma Dowdle. And it's just more of the same, lots and lots of adventures, but it's just Mary Alice and Grandma. And I won't give away the ending, but there's a similarly heartwarming ending. And Grandma continues to be up to her old tricks. It's just wonderful. I love it almost as much as the first one, but it's hot on the heels. So good. So yeah.
All right, I'm putting it in the Amazon cart
Just
right now.
read them together.
Read them together. Yes. Yeah. This one's a little different format. So the other one is each chapter is a summer with Grandma. And this one reads more straight through. It's more of a cohesive narrative because it's a whole year there. But
Mary Alice she's more closer to a teenager in that one, isn't she?
Yes, she's a teenager.
The boys and just
Yes.
So funny.
It's just wonderful. Just wonderful. Yeah. So please, everybody go check it out at the library or something. Check out both of them and just binge them. It's wonderful.
Yes. An adult can read them in one sitting. Back to
yes.
back.
Yeah, definitely. And that I wanted to say, so the first time I read these was there were three of us moms. Yeah, 3 of us moms, and there were 4 boys, and we just created this little tiny co-op for history and literature one year. And I helped teach the literature part, and they were doing the history part. And the boys, the 3 moms would be sitting there just hooting and hollering about, like, did you read this part? What about that part? And the boys were all like, Because they just don't get the humor quite as much. The humor hits differently when you're an adult, but
Yes, it does.
yeah, it's great. Okay, this one, can you see this? This is Miracles on Maple Hill. This is an older book. I think this was published in the 50s. So it's very much considered classic children's literature, middle school literature. This is one of those you can teach some history with. So Marley and her family live in Pittsburgh, I believe it is, in the city. And Dad has recently come home from the war. And he was a prisoner of war. And he's come home with all of the issues that a POW comes home with. And he really can't handle city life. He's not doing well there. So Marley's mother's family has a place way out in the country in Pennsylvania, and they decide they're just going to go spend a little time there. And it ends up being the thing that heals their family. They learn so much. They become part of a community in a way that they haven't been able to do in the city. It's a beautiful book. It's kind of slow, sort of like the Anne of Green Gables, kind of slow. It's not the big adventure book. It's not a big funny book, but although there are some parts that are funny, but it's lovely, and it's got some nice illustrations as well. They're just sort of plain ink drawings. I don't know if you can see that one very well.
Yeah.
But they're delightful too, and they're just sort of sprinkled through the book. So I highly recommend this one. Everybody in the middle school class pretty much liked this one. A couple of the boys were like, yeah, not a lot happens. I'm like, you're right, not a lot happens, but the things that do happen are big. They're big. So highly recommend that one. Here's the other older one I have, Secret Garden. I really love this book. I can't even remember when this
was Lorena's favorite.
It was early 19. Yeah. This one says 1911 was when it was copyrighted. So yeah. So this, every good kid story has an orphan, right? so Mary Lennox, she has been living in India with her family, and then through some circumstances, she becomes orphaned. So she goes back to Yorkshire to live in her uncle's house. And I say that rather than live with her uncle because he's just really not there much. He's a bad character. And strange things start to happen in this big old house. She hears someone crying, but she can't find this person. She's sort of looked after by the housekeeper, and she meets a boy named Dickon out on the moor, and then they stumble their way into a garden that she's not supposed to know about, and all sorts of things begin to happen.
Magical things happen.
I love the book, and I love the one of the earlier versions of the movie.
Of the movie. Yes. Yeah. So this is great. And I have not read this with a group, so it would be interesting to know how boys would react to this. I'm not sure. Yeah. But girls tend to love it, definitely.
Yeah. So. It's definitely more of a young ladies book. But like I said, I enjoyed the book, and again, it's probably because Lorena enjoys it. So we watched the movie quite a bit. So you kind of just get involved in the movie as well.
Yeah. And two of the main characters are boys. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't love everything that Kate DiCamillo writes, but I love this book. Tale of Despereaux is it's lovely. The movie's wonderful too. This one is really fun to read aloud. It has super short chapters. Like the chapters are usually at the most 3 or 4 pages long. Some of them are 1 page long, and lots of great illustrations as well. I love these books that have good illustrations. They're a very different style. Let me see if I can find a particularly good one. They're very soft, like pencil drawings. So I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, there's lots and lots of illustrations. So this looks like a thick book, but it's really not. There's lots of white on the pages, and there's lots of illustrations. So this is a really easy read, and it goes super fast. This is one of those that's, while it is really easy to read, the text is really easy. It can you can go into some really deep themes about what is dark? What is light? What's good? Like we actually did a chart in our class where I wrote good and evil on the board. And I said, okay, put the characters in the columns. And there were a couple that fit nicely. And then they were like, we got into this big discussion. They were like, no, he belongs over there because, and then somebody was like, no, but what about? And I'm like, mm-hmm. So I just stood back and let the discussion happen.
What about? Yeah.
What about? Yeah. And that's a great middle school age discussion to have about how, you can't draw people black and white, that we're all a big muddled mix of things, And so anyway, this is a great, and I just love the lesson of this book. And Kate DiCamilo's books do have a definite lesson. She starts out with something to teach. But I really, really, really enjoy this one. And the movie tie-in is fun to do if you read the book. So
she is hit or miss for me too.
Yeah.
I haven't read because of Winn-Dixie, but I love the movie. I actually do not like The Tale of Despereaux.
Okay.
But have you read Louisiana's Way Home?
No.
Love Louisiana's Way
Home.
Home.
Get that one.
That was a good one. So yeah, she's an author that I'll pick up, but I'm just kind of like, giving her the side eye for the first few 50 pages.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, we loved Because of Winn-Dixie. That was Atlee's favorite book for a long time.
The movie is fantastic.
The movie's wonderful. Yeah.
That's a great movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the last one. Okay, this is a fairly new book.
Oh, myself too. I love it.
Love this book so much. A Place to Hang the Moon. So this one was written. Was it in 2021? Was when this one. And I just have to show y'all because can you see?
Oh, you got to meet her, didn't you?
I get to meet her. So we read this with one of my classes, and one of my students he lives with his grandparents, and they're homeschooling him. And the granddad read it with him, and he said, "I love this book so much. Let's figure out how to get the author here." Oh, and I just went, so
I'm not going to stop you.
Right. So he contacted her, and she was like, "I'd love to come." And he was honest with her. He was like, "We're a small homeschool co-op. This is not going to be a huge sellout crowd or anything, but like, we'd love for you to come." So she was surprisingly affordable, and she has friends who live at Wintergreen, Amber. So an hour and a half from us here in Virginia. And so she made it a long weekend. She and her husband went and stayed with their Wintergreen friends. And then on their way home, I forget where she lives, but she's within driving distance, but in another state. Mm-hmm. Maybe she's in.
Is she in North Carolina because of Close Reads? Don't they? Hasn't he interviewed?
Maybe. Yes, he has interviewed her. So maybe that's where she is. Yeah. And so on their way home, they just stopped at the co-op one Monday afternoon, and she did a talk and a Q&A time, and then she autographed books for us. So anyway, the nicest person. She was really wonderful, and that was just a delight, a treat. But this book, so Kate Albus loves the Narnia series. Mm-hmm. And so it sort of starts out like that. There's some kids, they're orphaned. They live with the grandmother. They live with the grandmother. And that's all I need to tell you for you to understand their relationship with this woman. She is the grandmother. And she dies right out, like the first page. She's gone. And these kids are in London, and it's in the time of the Blitz, and there's no one to take these children. No one. They have nowhere to go, but they have a lot of money because of the grandmother. And so I'm not giving anything away because you find this all out right away, but the lawyer comes up with the plan that he's going to put them on a train headed out to the countryside along with all the other kids who are being evacuated because of the Blitz. And maybe, hopefully, along the way, they'll meet somebody who wants to adopt them. But they really shouldn't tell people about their money because they might get
the wrong kind of family.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so they end up in a town, and they end up in three different places to live. And they finally find the place to hang the moon.
It is the sweetest novel.
Yes. And if you love books, there's lots of bookish things in the novel. There's a wonderful library and a librarian involved. It's just the
I
best.
think it reads like an older, like it was written in the 40s and 50s or whatever. She writes very like she's from 50 years ago or whatever.
Exactly. And it's just lovely. I think your girls would probably love this, Dash. How old's your youngest?
She is 6.
I think she could hang in there with this. There's a character about her age. So I think she'd have a blast. Yeah. Great book. I'd love to see this as a movie. I didn't want it
Yeah.
It's sweet.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's good. That's it. That's my 5.
Very good. That's it.
I know.
Yeah, listen, trust me. I mean, because as they pointed out, I'm going to point out. I mean, I could have went with all of the Laura Ingalls Wilder books. I could have went with one of my favorites growing up, Encyclopedia Brown. I could have gone with those.
Super Fudge.
Just so many.
Super Fudge.
Yes.
It was so. I kind of just I liked. I went with a different thing. You guys kind of had. I had all, for the most part, all male protagonists in a way.
You're a dude.
Well, I'm a dude, but I love to read. It's probably more young adult, but I love Nancy Drew. I love those. I love Ramona and Beezus. I love and I love all those. But and 3 of them have dogs, so that might have something to do. I love dogs. One of them is not Old Yeller, but I still don't know how they survived that year of school. Well, that's probably.
Does Old Yeller end up on anybody's? Does Old Yeller end up on anybody's favorite list?
It was on my long list. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my long list. It's a really good book.
Long time.
Yeah.
But we'll start off with Stanley or Stanley Yelnats, if you guys might know him. It's just, his last name is just Stanley spelled backwards. I think that's awesome, Louis. If you didn't know that, you need to get some more police skills under your belt there. But Holes. I like the book way better than the movie, but the movie's fine. But the book, I think, goes more into detail a lot as per usual. But they're out there. He's in trouble. It's either go to jail or go get sent to the camp, and he gets sent to the camp to dig holes. And along the way he uncovers a family connection to the camp and all that. I love it. I love Zero. I think Zero is one of the best characters because there's you're learning a lesson. But Stanley finally realizes he's not really a mischievous kid. He's bored, I think, for the most part. But he ends up teaching Zero, and or I should, So I just thought it was a great book. Caveman, as they like to call him in the book. That's Stanley's Caveman, Zero. But very good book. They did do a movie. I want to say Shia LaBeouf or whatever his name is in there. I don't want to give too much away. I mean, I'm sure there's probably lots of people that have seen the book or read the book and seen the movie. But if you haven't, Newbery Award winner, as a lot of the books that we've read are Newbery winners. But it's wholesome, and yeah, you're learning. You did things wrong, but you can come back from it. It's not the end all be all just because you made a mistake. And so I like that theme. I like that tone. So Holes is really good. Louisa Carr. He's done quite a few books, but that's the most recent. I think that one was pretty close to 98, 99, somewhere around there. Up next, I think probably a lot of us have read this. It's it's from the viewpoint of a dog. If you know where I'm going with this, Call of the Wild.
Oh,
Buck.
Oh, yes.
Call of the Wild. Jack London, Call of the Wild. I mean, obviously there's more to it, but he's just prize-winning Saint Bernard, and then he gets stolen and taken, and he's got to run with the dog, and it's about your true nature. It's he's just Jack London's just using the dog as what are the true nature. So I love, he's forced into brutal conditions But he answers the call of the wild, and that's what I love. He reverts back to him, his nature, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing from some people. Some people would not like to see them revert back to their true nature, but I think it was just a good book, and I love it. Up next, yeah, it is a very classic. I think I probably did read that in 4th, 5th, 6th grade. I can't remember. Maybe even earlier than that. May have read it in 3rd grade. I can't remember.
One of my boys
I just loved it.
liked it.
Yeah, it's repetitive at times. If you've read the book, it's a lot of repetitiveness and especially with the dog, or buck, or it's a lot of repetitiveness. But I still like the book. I think it still teaches a lesson, which is most of what all these middle school books are about, anyway. So the lesson that you learn. Up next is Hatchet. This one got a lot of slack, and I'm talking a lot of slack I love the Hatchet. I think there's 5 or 6 books in the series itself with Brian and the Hatchet, and but he's going through some rough times himself. His mom and dad are getting divorced, and he's on a plane to see his dad flying to Canada, and the plane crashes in the Canadian forest, and he has to learn to survive. And all he's got is the hatchet that his mother gave him. And it's a lot of people. A lot of things that I read were, he knew it right away. No, there's a lot of trial and error for him. If you read this book, there's a lot of trial. It's not like he immediately knew how to do things. The only time he said he knew how to do something is because when he was watching a show about the United States Air Force survival stuff. They just showed him how to do a couple of things in survival. That's it. Everything else was trial and error. Trial and error with building a fire. Trial and error with getting his supplies back out of the aircraft. Just a really good book. And he's got baggage to deal with, and not just
trauma. There's some trauma.
He's got some trauma. He's got self-esteem issues with his looks. He's got his parents are going through his parents are going through divorce. I just he can't bring himself to forgive his mother. I think he loves his mother, but he can't bring himself to forgive her. And I think I haven't read the rest of them. I've only read the Hatchet. So I'm going to delve deeper into the rest of the stories to see if he does. I think it's really good. He's not know all, be it all. Like I said, it takes him a few tries to get everything right, to hunt fish. It's not like he just went out there and speared fish the first time. He had to learn his way through it. He had to learn how to build a bow. He had to learn how to build fire. And I thought it was really good. So it's definitely.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I know that book was written a while ago, but I still think it's good that in this digital age that we are still taught how to do those very basic survival things, like how to start a fire and know that you need to find shelter and you need to get water. I think those are skills that should still be taught. So, novels like that should still be read today for sure.
I agree. And don't eat the berries that he
That's right.
Don't eat the berries that he ate.
I was going to say, you're right, Dash. It wasn't easy for him, and he suffered some consequences out there that were a little scary. Like in reading the book as a mom, I was like, oh, somebody go rescue this kid, right? But
there's a few instances where I was going, I don't know if he's, especially when he started. I mean, the first thing I yelled at him. And listen, I yelled at him when he started picking those berries.
Yeah, don't eat that. Well, and one of my sons in particular loves all of those books. And he, as we speak, is camping alone in the backcountry of Big Bend National Park.
Yay, Caleb!
Yes, keeping his mother up at night. He said to us, if you don't hear from me by Tuesday, Ben, who's our other son, has my coordinates, and you best get in touch with the ranger station. Because he's supposed to be back in South Texas, down in Galveston, pick up his dog on Tuesday. So he said, if I don't show up, you better come send somebody looking for me.
Oh,
Yeah,
Caleb.
yeah.
I know, right? And
So
he's read these
Roughing it,
books.
though.
And I know this is a side note, but in a way, Dana, I'm glad we moved because Colton and Caleb are the same kid. And if they would have been able to grow up, Colton would not have joined the Navy and he would be with Caleb somewhere.
Apparently in Big Bend, camping out in Big Bend right now. So
that is
Caleb
my
was
Colton.
Oh, dark 30, he was in line at the ranger station because you can't get those permits online. You have to get them in person.
to go in
And
person.
He's like,
Yeah.
he's like, I'm getting that permit. So anyway, Dash, yeah, you're right. Like I think he seems to have been kind of inspired by these, but like if you love these books, I think especially as a boy, those can be really inspirational too.
Mhm.
They're definitely a boy book. I mean, I think girls will,
I
think
want to read it. I've
Oh,
never
they're
read
good.
it.
I think girls
You'll
will
enjoy it,
I think
Amber. Yeah.
they'll like it, but it's definitely a boy book. It's
It's
really
masculine.
good, and yeah, it's masculine. It is a masculine book. Well, where would you be if you couldn't have a book about pure imagination? I mean, we have Charlie and the Chocolate
Nowhere.
Factory. You have to have pure imagination, and that's what we get with the Phantom Toll Booth.
Oh,
It's the only place. It's the only place that you can go to the island of conclusions, and you have to jump to get to the island of conclusions, or you have to, save rhyme and reason princesses. I think princesses rhyme and reason make very good characters. Of my 5, it's my least favorite, but I don't mean that in a negative connotation. I like the other ones better for what they are, but I love the theme of this. Milo's a great character. I love Talk. I love the dog. I think everything about the Phantom Toll Booth is a really special book. This one's been around for what? This one's probably close to the oldest one. This might be the oldest one that we've talked about. Maybe one of them's older. Okay.
and people who love this book love this book.
Yeah,
He's 26 and wears his Phantom Toll Booth t-shirt proudly to this day.
So there you go.
He's a fantasy kid. Like he loves, I think that just really spearheaded his love of all things fantasy. Yeah.
It's 61, so I think we've had a couple older ones. But yeah, 61. I think even Where the Red Fern Grows is 61 as well. But I loved it. I had never read. This is the third time I read it, and I didn't read the first time until I was working at the bookstore. So I don't even remember this as a kid, but it quickly became a very embedded book in my repertoire. I love it. I just think it's a really great book. We would read that. We'd have read-alongs at the bookstore, and this is one of the ones. This is one of the ones I would sit and read to them, and so.
Eric, I want to read aloud to you so bad. I try to read out loud to him all the time. I miss it.
And you get that. Oh,
he just walks away from me or puts his face back in his phone.
I bet when the grandkids are there, you read and read and read and read.
I do as much as they let me.
Yes.
But yeah, Norton Juster, what a great book. Phantom Toll Booth, I love it. Mm-hmm. Read it aloud, and read it to him aloud. And if he pushes you away, you follow him around and you continue to read it to him. Just behind him the entire. Are you hearing me, Eric? I know you can hear me.
So he may have a little bit of. He may have a little bit of PTSD, and I say that lightly. I know. I don't mean it real. I'm sorry, but he may because when he was going to college. I would read his textbooks out loud in like a sexy voice, and it drove him nuts. So
was that the way he could remember the text? Was that the way he could remember the text?
Sometimes I'd have like a Russian accent. Oh, Sarah Palin. I'd talk like her. I was dumb. It was so stupid. So he's probably like, I do not want this woman to read out loud to me.
That's great.
You're
That's awesome. That's awesome.
funny.
Whatever.
So I see that Lorena read. Lorena, and we'll all read out loud to the girls, but Lorena will definitely read out loud to the girls, and she always gets the voices, and every character has a voice, and I think that's special.
I'm terrible at that. Apparently, I can only do Sarah Palin.
Oh, just do it. Can you? I can't even do Sarah Palin.
I can't get it anymore. I think she was running for vice president way back then or something.
Yeah,
that tells you how old I am, folks.
And my final, and this is still one of the best books and one of the best movies to ever come out, in my opinion. And it's an old 70s movie, I think, is when they first did it. But it's near and dear to my heart because it's Oklahoma. It's the Ozark Mountains, but they talk a lot about Oklahoma City and Tecumseh and where the red fern grows.
Oh,
and I love this book.
Wilson
Rawls.
I lived in Oklahoma.
That's why.
I love. Yeah, this is a story of pure love. And this is a boy that absolutely adores his dogs, and he worked 2 years to get the money to save up for those dogs. He loves his family. And you can see that he loves his family, and he loves his grandfather. But he's always wanted to be, run hunting dogs, and he gets little Ann, and oh God, I can't even think of
Old Dan.
Really?
Old
Dan and Old Dan and little Ann. Old Dan, little Ann. And there's a certain bond, I bond with my dogs, and you probably bond with your pets, but man, you just feel it. You're just reading this and you know that he loves these dogs. And so obviously, as we talked about, it saves his life. Ultimately, at the end of the day, both Dan and Ann save his life from a mountain lion. And it's just crushing and heartbreaking. But to go back and see, he sees where the red ferns have grown, and he's older now. He's narrating it from his older self. He's living in town and he's narrating it, and because he sees some dogs. That's how it opens up. He sees some dogs running around and he inspects them, checks their paws, but it's and even as his mom says, God works in mysterious ways, brings things, and things happen for a reason. He brought possibly, saying Dan and Ann came into his life because because he may have died if it wasn't for them, because of the. There's several instances where he's beaten up by the kids in town. There's 2 other kids that want to beat him up and kill his dogs, and one of those kids actually ends up dying because he falls on his hatchet. And so it's just there's lessons learned. Are you?
Just read this.
And the relationship between he and his granddad is beautiful. I mean,
I love it. Yes,
beautiful part of that book. So, yeah.
I think that's one reason. Because both of my grandfathers had passed away before I was born, so I didn't even get to know them. Sorry. So I absolutely love that. I had step grandfathers, I guess, but my real grandfathers. I love it because you just feel it. They do. They banter back and forth. They have this bond, and and there's a part in there where you're getting ready to get mad at Grandpa because he does what Grandpa does and walks off by himself. Don't do that, Grandpa. It's just a great book, and if you haven't read it, or if you have, it's one of those ones that is can be read all over again, and I highly suggest that. I think if you have Amazon Fire TV or Amazon TVs or anything like that, you can just do a search and it's on there. I think it's on Amazon itself, on Prime, the movie. So good, such a great movie.
So
I was going to ask you,
if you guys have read Summer of the Monkeys, because like in the 4th grade, I had to also, like 3rd and 4th grade, I also had to read Summer of the Monkeys, and I looked it up, and it's the same author from where
Yeah, it's same wrong.
So that's probably why I had to read that one in school too. So Summer of the Monkeys.
That one was
I don't really remember.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. I was just thinking of that one as you were talking. And then the other thing that popped into my head is the guy who wrote Holes also wrote a series of book called, the first book is Sideways Stories from Wayside School. Oh, yeah. And my friend was a 2nd grade teacher, and she read it at the beginning of every school year. And I got it, and another book that brings tears to my eyes because I'm laughing so hard I can't make it through the sentence. So if you have a 1st or 2nd, 3rd grader, I think Sideways Stories from Wayside School is flippin' hilarious, and highly recommend it.
Yeah, Louis Sakaris is a great. I think he's a fantastic author, and yeah, it's just I loved all the authors that, even the ones that you brought up a couple. I did those ones, the Peck. I don't know anything about Richard Peck, so I will definitely get those books. But
Data talks about history and learning through literature, so he has lots of his, I think most of his books you can plug into a time frame. There's one, I can't think of the title, but it's the Chicago World's Fair in the late 1800s. Excellent. I think there's one, it's about a pilot.
As long as H.H. Holmes doesn't show up in that book, I'm good.
No, I'm definitely in the White City. But yeah, most of his books I think can go with history lessons for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And his writing style is just so good. You know, it's just kind of like hand it to me straight and easy read and just great. Yeah.
Yeah. That's surprisingly, that's some of the negative stuff. Like a lot of the negative stuff I read about a lot of the books that I read is the themes. And I'm like, why are you upset with the themes of these books? And this is I don't know if they're middle schoolers, but a lot of them going back. I read this I was forced to read this and I just hated it. And that's just somebody just.
Yeah. You know what? And if you don't, like I always tell my students, it's okay if you don't like a book. The world is
absolutely
big and it's full of lots of different books and lots of different people. So if you don't like a book, that's fine. But I want to know why you don't like. You can't just say, this is an awful book, I don't like it.
Yes.
You can say I don't like it, but you can't say it's an awful book unless you can give me some reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what did you not connect with? What storyline did you not like? Yes, exactly. Right. I wish Goodreads reviewers would.
Right. No, well, that's never going to. No, because they all have the collective IQ of a tulip.
You don't know them. Stop.
I'm kidding. No, but no, you can see some of the reviewers actually take. They'll take their time, but. You're right. If I get one that says this book I was forced to read it, so it stinks, you lend no credence to any of the books that you review.
It's rare that I leave a negative review. I don't do that. I'm not a paid reviewer, so I'll just give it its 2 stars or 3 stars and call it a day.
Yeah. And there are some.
If I review it,
Go ahead,
if I review a negative or a positive, it has to, even if I give it a 5-star, something in there still has to move me that I give or that I'll give a good positive review, even with a negative. But sometimes I'm just like, the nostalgia bug hits me and I'm like, it's still there. It's still got it. It's a great book. It still gives you great. So sometimes I catch myself doing what I complain about sometimes, like, especially when I'm like nostalgia hits, but there was one that I don't like. If it stinks, like you said, Dana, if it stinks, tell me why it stinks. Don't say it just stinks.
Yeah.
Is it because Stanley Yelnats isn't 5 foot tall, or he's not 6 foot tall and strong? Why do you dislike it? So yeah.
Right. Or were there legitimate reasons? Like, did the author really not develop the character? Were there, threads through the book that got dropped and never any resolution? Like, sometimes there are real reasons to pick at a book. But, if it's
talking about me now.
No, actually, I'm not, because I'm not. If you're talking about your book, I'm only like 4 or 5 chapters in because I've been snowed under with taxes. But I'm reading your book, and I haven't seen that yet. So these problems you're mentioning. But so anyway, the other thing I was going to say is you have to, because reading is really subjective, right? And like I have read books before that I thought I didn't really like that book, and then I pick it up 5 years later, and I'm like, what was the matter with me? This is a great book.
Right.
So
Right.
you could be at a different point in your life, or maybe you've had an experience that changes the way you relate to the book. So I don't like to say negative things about books unless I can really say, you know what, this author just did a really bad job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, unless you can really back it up or you know,
Yes.
things like that. Now there's sometimes I don't, you know, there's been a few ones, and Amber's gotten onto me for a one that I gave, and she chastised me for that one, but I had legitimate reasons why I didn't like it. You
wrote it in such a hateful tone that
I did.
But like
It
you
just
were
made me angry.
right, and that's fine. But I personally, if you have all that anger and you're negative, I'm not going to read it. Like, calm down
fine.
and then tell me why. So I'm sorry for getting onto you.
No, you're good. I like that though.
You
That's
were mad
that's-
when you wrote
that's-
that review.
that's our dynamic though. That's a good dynamic.
Sorry.
I was angry with that book, and I wrote that I wrote that immediately after I got done. I probably should have taken.
it was
Yeah, I
fresh.
probably should have taken some time to. Yeah,
Just to not-
I was like, I gotta write this now before I forget.
I don't even
Uh,
remember the book.
But
I just remember the review.
I don't know if I. Yeah,
You don't
it was
do
the
your-
one. It was the one where. I don't do reviews online anymore, or on Facebook anymore, because a lot of people get butt hurt, and you know, they're going to come at you.
Gotta talk about them.
Yeah, if somebody might not like my opinion about a book I read, you know,
Yeah.
or a movie I watched, they you know, they get a little upset with that especially if it's something they love.
Mhm.
Especially if it's something they love, and you have a different opinion than them, then you don't know what you're talking
Mhm.
about. So that's why I don't do them anymore. We do them on here, but I won't do them on there anymore because
Mhm.
I'm tired of all the private messages. that I
Tired of
get
having to
after
defend
stuff.
yourself.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
and that's like
yeah.
a friend of mine was like trying to have this big like debate or whatever, and I'm like, Facebook is not the place for this. This is, you want to call me, we can have a bigger conversation. But if I
Yeah.
put my opinion out there, I'll snap back a little bit. But this is not for a greater discussion. It really isn't. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can't
So-
read tone, and you can't, you know, you can read a word that somebody posts on Facebook and think it means something, but if you were actually talking to that person and listening to their tone of voice, you would realize what they're really trying to communicate. And so Facebook is the worst. Like,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
don't even
All of them
try.
are the worst. Social
Yeah.
media, period, is
Social media is hard.
Well, I'm all right with. I'm starting to like Instagram more because it's just a picture, and I can just be like, all right, cool. But some people, no, I'm kidding. But yeah, it's not worth me
Your
getting.
sanity? Right.
Yeah, it's not worth my sanity. That's why, you know. So they can. I always tell them though, if I do something, I said you can get glad in the same pants you got mad in, because my opinion still sticks. You know, nobody's paying me for these reviews. I just give them of my own free will. If you're being paid, if you're a paid shill and you have to say good things because you'll lose your meal ticket, fine, go do that on your own time.
I think even if I was a paid reviewer, I'd still give my honest review. You don't have to like it if you're paid.
I know. Well, you obviously have not been into the Disney and Marvel and Star Wars world lately.
No, I've never been in that world.
Yeah, don't fall down that hole. No, I get it. If you're a paid reviewer, I understand. But there are some paid reviewers that don't want to lose their meal ticket and their free rides to Disneyland and stuff like that by saying something
That sounds
negative.
like it's their problem. Not
Yeah.
well, whatever. That's off topic.
Did I just get dinged?
Yeah, my text messages come through my desktop. Sorry, my computer.
So no, I don't mind. I might go back to it, but at the end of the day, you know, lot of the times, it's my opinion. Get over it. I'm not gonna like everything you like. There's things that I love that most people are just like, you like that? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Surprise!
everything.
It was like we did Wicked. We reviewed Wicked the other night. And I love the movie, and I've seen the play, and I have no problem with it. I like the music and everything. So people are like, "Real? What? Yeah, come on. There's nothing wrong with it." I like the play. I like the play soundtrack better than I do the movie soundtrack, though, because you just can't beat India Menzel, and her voice is phenomenal. Kristen Chenoweth, but I thought it was good. We're doing Lady Gaga this week. Lady Gaga's got a new one.
Wow.
Oh, she does. That's right. I don't know.
Maybe I'll get
for Lent, so I won't be saying anything.
maybe I'll get in trouble by the Gagas like I did with the Swifties and the Bushes.
Sometimes I will say, in all honesty, it's how you present your review, not the review yourself, that makes me angry.
Oh, the only thing I had problem with Midnights was the cussing.
I'm
That
not
was the
even
only problem I
going
had.
back to this conversation. We're talking about middle school books.
And it's been great fun talking about middle school books.
So, as we've been on an hour,
and it's time to get off. And with that, as I get chest, no, I kid. So how long was your long list? How long was your long list? You said about 15.
no, I had like I guess it was about 7 or 8. I guess the long list.
Yeah.
I didn't have to cut it too far, but I have a whole I still collect middle grade novels today for my grandkids to read. So I just have this whole section.
How long was your long list, Dana?
I had 10 that I had to painstakingly get rid of 5.
Yeah.
But then I got help
guys
because one was on Amber's list. So
Yeah.
that helped. I was like, oh,
And
good.
I'll just review book 2.
You guys are way better than me. I had I seriously, I had probably 20, 25
Wow.
that I was like, I could have easily pulled onto this show because
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I could literally list the entire Little House on the Prairie, Lorton's. I could literally put all of them on there because they're so good.
I didn't want to do too many books that were super well known already.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But no,
But,
you're
yeah,
right.
those
There's
are all so
so
good.
many. There's
Yeah.
just so many. Yeah.
There's some modern, like Murder Most Ladylike is the title in the first series of a boarding school and all girls boarding school in England, and these 2 girls in Agatha Christie style solve murders, and it's just delightful.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
We got Mary Poppins
wow.
right here.
Oh, the
The
girls
Mother
did not
Daughter
like that.
Stuff.
The girls
What?
did not like Mary Poppins. The girls didn't like Mary Poppins.
It's not the movie if you read it thinking that's what you're going to get.
Right. Yeah, they said she was meaner.
She is.
She's
Like,
meaner. And
The older I get, I relate to the book Mary Poppins more than the movie.
yeah. Nope. They did
Yep.
not. They love the movie more. They definitely love
Yeah.
the movie more.
So,
Raina read that with them. They did that. Now I think they're doing Winnie the Pooh or something.
Oh.
Winnie the Pooh on audio with Judi Dench and Christopher Plummer. Oh my gosh, it's the best.
So good.
Yeah.
So for anybody listening, if you don't have a middle schooler or child in your life, don't be afraid to read middle grade novels.
Yeah.
You can tackle big topics in a gentler way, and I like them better than like young adult because they're not quite teen and that teen angst is not there, and there may be some sweet elementary romance or whatever, you know what I mean, like a crush or something, but there's none of that icky high school romance. It just bags me.
Listen,
They're clean and
and sweet and still
I
tackle big topics. Oh my gosh. Thank you, my love. Can I read out loud to you?
Listen,
and with that,
yeah,
he's gone.
I mean, I can still read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I can still read How to Eat Fried Worms. I can still read Ramona and Beezus. I can
Fried worms.
James and the
there's
Giant.
yeah, James, all those. There's so many good middle school books, and you're right. There should never. It should not have. I know it has an age on it, but it shouldn't because you could read them at any age, and that's what I like. You know, that's why I love Where the Red Fern Grows. It's so good.
It's wonderful. I mean, yes, it's geared toward kids, but it really deals with some serious themes, and there's some things of big consequence that happen in that book.
Yeah,
So
you're dealing with
talk to high schoolers about this book. The three of us could talk about this book easy peasy. So
I mean, you're dealing with one of the biggest issue. You know, the death. You're dealing with one of the biggest things that it's hard. That is hard to talk about.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
I just think, so I was, there's a lot of great books, and I loved all the ones you said. So I'm definitely going to hit Richard Peck up and get his.
Get those too and report back.
Yes.
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yep. I want to hear what you think of Grandma Dowdle.
I will.
Yes, she's a hoot.
I will let you know. Well, we'll be back next Sunday with our reading roundup. We'll be getting all of our February. God. So the month lasted like 2 weeks long. I swear that February did.
We blinked and February was gone. Did I read
February
any?
was gone.
Yeah.
So we'll be back with that on next week. And then our the Ogress and the Orphans. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
The Ogress and the Orphans will be our monthly read. We'll be back with that on the last Sunday, I think. Or no, second to last Sunday. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the 30th.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So we'll be back on the 30th with that. So join us with that one. Then we'll be back in April.
April's going to be fun because we're doing a book and movie review.
Yeah, we are doing a book and movie review.
Yeah,
so that should be fun. And we're doing what is it called?
Wonderstruck.
Wonderstruck. I was trying to say just say Wonder, but I didn't want to just say because that's another different novel. So we're doing Wonderstruck. So that's our movie and book. We had a long January. We had a long February with books. So it was nice to have some short books.
Short.
Yes.
Until we get to The Stand, that'll probably be our next longest one.
Yeah, I'm about to start that one.
And that's the uncut, unabridged edition.
We have to make sure that we can stream it. I don't know about Dana, but I don't have every streaming service out there. So
no.
Just message us so that I can research where to watch it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which one did I say we should go? I think I said we're going with the 90s movie, the 90s one with yeah, we're gonna go with the 90s movie or TV or miniseries.
Because I've seen the newer one.
Yeah. And that's the one that has Gary Sinise, Molly Ringwald, Whoopi Goldberg.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it should be on Amazon. Like I said, if you have Amazon Prime, it should be on Amazon Prime.
But that's not going to be till August. So
yeah, that's August.
Got a while. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you, ladies, for coming out. Enjoyed your book. Enjoy your coffee there, or tea, or whatever you're sipping on.
Tea with no caffeine. Too late in the day for the caffeine. I know this is how old he makes tea this time every night. It's tea time.
You're never too old for caffeine. You're never too old for caffeine.
I have to get up at 5 a.m. to go to a Pilates class. I have no business drinking caffeine this time of night. So
Pilates. I forgot about your pilates.
I have to go to pilates first thing in the morning.
All right. Well, we'll be back. Yeah, we'll be back in a week. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out, enjoying it. We will see you next week. And
all right.
You guys let me know. You guys let me know how I did.
You did great. It was great.
Yeah.
You picked really good ones.
Yeah, they were great.
I'm proud of you. All
Excellent.
right.
So we might have to have some more one-offs with middle school books later down in the year or something.
Okay.
Fun.
Maybe like a no school November or something.
No school November. Just read books.
Just read.
Just read books. Read. Thank you guys. We will see you on the next
All
show.
right.
Good night.
Bye.